Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first webinar of the Mediterranean Forest Week 8th edition. So the Mediterranean Forest Week is taking place in Barcelona from 4 to 7 of November. And we have, so the title, you can see it on the screen, and this is our very first webinar that is organized by IUCN and Association Internationale des Forêts Méditerranéennes, IFM. I will take you through our website, the website of Mediterranean Forest Week, to show you that we have 6 different sessions, as you can see on the screen. And today we are in the webinar of the 3rd session about biodiversity. In fact, each of these sessions is organized as follows. You will have preparatory webinars. So this is the first one, for example, for session 3. And then all what we will be learning from these webinars will be brought to Barcelona in November. They will be presented by the rapporteur or by the organizer of the session. And we will have the keynote speakers, the panelists, and poster related to this session. So today with IUCN and IFM, we have a series of 3 webinars prepared for session 3. And today we are starting with the first one. So I will ask you to register to the Mediterranean Forest Week if you didn't do already, because registration will end by the end of September. And from here, I will leave it to Livia for some introductions for the speaker, of course, but also for housekeeping rules and all you should know how the webinar will work today. Thank you. Over to you, Livia.
Thank you, Magda, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's wonderful to see many people attending today's webinar. I am Livia Zapponi. I am an IUCN consultant, and I will be one of the hosts for today's webinar. Just some information before introducing today's speaker. This webinar will be recorded, so it will be available on the Mediterranean Forest Week webpage on the section on Mediterranean forest biodiversity. If you have any questions for our speakers, please use the chat on YouTube. We will collect them, and we will have a final Q&A session with all the speakers at the end. So today we will start with a brief introduction on the role that forests can have in supporting the new Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework by Jamal Nagijeva. Jamal Nagijeva has an academic background in environmental sciences, and she's a forest biodiversity officer who works for the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Because of the time difference between the Mediterranean region and Canada, this is a recorded presentation. So please enjoy the start of today's webinar.
Hello and greetings from the Secretariat on Biological Diversity. My name is Jamal Nagijeva and I'm Forest Biodiversity Officer at the Secretariat. And today in my brief presentation, I will speak about the role of forests for the new Global Biodiversity Framework, and also about the process in the run-up to the COP16 later this year. And to start off, I would like to mention that forest biodiversity has been historically at the heart of this convention. It is one of the 7 thematic programs of work, was adopted back in 1998 and revised in 2002. It's based on 3 pillars, on conservation, sustainable use and benefit sharing, institutional and socioeconomic and regulatory. And within the context of this program of work, parties have been adopting various decisions, mostly on partnership and mainstreaming. This helped the CBD Secretariat to establish strong and continuous cooperation with different partners group, such as Collaborative Partnership on Forest, UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, Rio Conventions, and many other partners. What is important to know that in the past decade, forest was specifically mentioned in Aichi Biodiversity Target 5, which aimed at reducing the loss, fragmentation, and degradation of natural habitats, including the forest. And we know that in the past decade, the rate of deforestation was declining, but we still have been losing 10 million hectares of forest every year. And to support the parties, CBD parties, in implementation of its forest landscape related commitments, with the help of Korea Forest Service, CBD Secretariat has been hosting the Forest Ecosystem Restoration Initiative. So since 2015 and until today. So 2 years ago, parties adopted Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. It has 4 goals, long-term goals, and 23 action-oriented targets. The new biodiversity plans is a package of decisions. It comes together with a monitoring framework, the national mechanism for implementation, capacity support, and resource mobilization. What shall we know about the forest and the new biodiversity framework? In this new framework, parties decided not to single out specific terrestrial ecosystem, to recognize the equal value of all types of ecosystem for biodiversity conservation. And this fact that forest is now no longer nested in one specific target also encourages us for a broader analysis and looking across the all biodiversity targets when we talk about the forest conservation and sustainable use. But mindful of the time, we'll take a very quick glance on this complex interface. So the first group of target works to reduce the threats to biodiversity, and the big part of the national action will take place, already taking place in forest, such as reducing forest fragmentation and loss, forest landscape restoration. We know that many protected areas will be expanded or created in the forest areas. Safe and legal harvesting and trade of forest species is important. The big part of global timber trade comes from the illegal sources. And also overexploitation of forest wildlife creates an empty forest. The second group of targets work to meet people's needs sustainably. There is a myriad of forest ecosystem services which should be maintained and restored to secure food, safe environment, employment, human health and well-being. And finally, the third group of target deals with the economic drivers and social inclusion and reducing and eliminating deforestation at production and supply chain, reducing harmful subsidies, and supporting community forest management, traditional knowledge. So seeing this very complex interplay of forest and the global biodiversity targets, we invite all the partners working on conservation and sustainable use of forests to identify your unique role which you could play in the implementation of the biodiversity plan, but also to find out how the implementation of the plan will contribute to the achievement of your respective strategies and goals, and where those synergies would be the most effective. So let's take a look what's happening right now in the country or the regional levels. The countries are reviewing their national biodiversity strategies and action plans, NBSAPs, to be submitted along with the national targets by COP16 in October this year. And to support this process, the CBD Secretariat, jointly with the partners, organizing the NBSAP regional dialogues. It's a regional or sub-regional dialogues. And those informal regional dialogues is the place for CBD focal points to consider and mobilize commitments from other relevant MEAs and processes to join forces for enhanced monitoring for the resource mobilization plans. And we really hope that those informal regional, sub-regional dialogues will continue to play such a role in the implementation of NBSAPs and during the whole span of Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. CBD COP16 will take place in Colombia in October this year, and it will go under the theme of Peace with Nature. This will be the first conference after the adoption of the new biodiversity plan. And among the key decisions which are expected to be negotiated is monitoring framework, advancing the resource mobilization, and also the revision of the thematic programs of work to align them with the new biodiversity plan. This will also include the forest biodiversity program. Collaboration with other multilateral environmental agreement partners and initiatives. And also as the part of capacity development mechanism, the work of regional and sub-regional technical and scientific centers will be launched at the COP16. But the most importantly, countries will present their MBSAs or the national targets, and we look forward to seeing the comprehensive commitments made across the government and across the society. And we invite everyone to be part of the biodiversity plan. Thank you very much.
So thank you for listening to the first intervention. Our second speaker today is Kaouthar Aouane. She's the director of the Talasemtane National Park in Morocco. She's a forest engineer and has worked on several projects on nature conservation. And today she will present us a case study on forest preservation and community involvement. So Kaouthar Aouane, the floor is yours.
Olivia, so I will just share my presentation.
Yes.
Okay. So it works. Good. So thank you for having me today. My name is Kaouthar Aouane. So I'm work for a National Agency for Water and Forests as a director of Talassemtane National Park. And I will speak today about community engagement and forest preservation in Talassemtane National Park. So we know that forest ecosystems are being degraded at alarming rates, and ecological restoration can mitigate forest degradation and enhance the provision of forest goods and services. So because of the complexity of the socio-economic and cultural context and the existence of different groups of stakeholders with different needs, interests, and aspirations, forest restoration is not always welcomed. So there is a need for a participatory approach that enhances stakeholder awareness of forest restoration in order to achieve social acceptance and support. So to replace to this all of this problem, so a lot of partners. We have Association International des Forêts Méditerranéennes, AIFM. We have a National Agency for Water and Forests, and also a local association, ATED, Association Talasemtane pour l'Environnement et le Développement. Ainsi, we have a university in Tétouan. They all work together to create a local project in Talassemtane National Park, Restore Med Forest, Morocco. With a duration of 24 months from January 1, 2020 to December 31, 2022, and with a budget of 123,000 euros. These projects have three objectives. The first one is improve ecosystem services. So the project aims to carry out actions for the sustainable management of forest ecosystems in the Mediterranean basin in order to make them more resilient and functional. The second one is towards involvement of the local population and job creation. So the project involves the local population at each stage of the intervention in order to make them real actors in the development of their territory. And we have the third objective. It was the staff capacity building and sensitization of the local population. So the project aims to train technical staff and raise awareness among local population. So where we work? So we work in Talasemtane National Park. It's a protected area created in 2004, covers an area of approximately 60,000 hectares in two territory. So province Chefchaouen and Tétouan in the north of Morocco, with 102,003 population. So this territory is a key area for plant biodiversity, a site of remarkable biodiversity. So it's a hotspot, and Talasemtane zone important for plants. And the park's flora includes several endemic species, including emblematic Moroccan fire Abies marocana, and also it was created to conserve the last of Moroccan sweetness fire forests. Also, the Talasemtane National Park is a part of the transcontinental biosphere reserve of the Mediterranean, and is the first intercontinental reserve declared by UNESCO in 2006. It runs between the south of Spain and the north of Morocco, about 1 million hectares. And the most outstanding feature of this biosphere reserve is willingness to promote a sustainable development model in a framework of institutional collaboration. So there is exceptional wealth in this territory. So we have a unique biodiversity. Also, it's a territory with multiple landscapes, deep and steep valley, gorge with impressive different, remarkable geological formation and abundant caves. It's in the process of being classified as a global geopark recognized by UNESCO. Also, we have a specific historical, cultural, and natural heritage sites like Talasemtane and Tazout, Sapinière, Akshor site, Wad Qanar, and etc. We have also a cultural richness expressed by culinary tradition, oral expression, local products, and know-how related to traditional crafts, and the characters who have shaped the history of the landscapes. So, to work in this RESCOM projects, we adopt a participatory forest restoration approach. And there is 4 phases or 4 steps in this approach. We have first of all conceptual planning, second one preparatory activities, and the third one is implementation, and the last one evaluation and monitoring. I will start by the first one, conceptual planning. So we did an assessment of current condition. So we did an evaluation of the site, the historical context, biodiversity assessment. Also, we define restoration objectives like ecological goals, societal benefits, long-term sustainability, and also stakeholder engagement, and the final decision on restoration. So we chose this, we visited the site being restored by IFM and partners. So there is some picture of this first step or first phase of this approach. So the second one, it was a preparatory activities. So we did a meeting with stakeholders, 5 visits also, so many workshops, and a partnership agreement signed in 2021 outlining administrative, technical, logistical, and financial aspects. So there is some also some picture of this phase. The third step, it was implementation. So we voluntary participation, but planting of the maritime pine with the contribution of the local population. It was the aim of this project. Implementation also of fire tree sown by the local population. Also remunerated the 5 tasks. It was also one of the objectives of this project, and awareness workshop for school children, and also meeting with young researchers at the Faculty of Science in Tétouan. So there is also some pictures. And the last one, it was evaluation, monitoring, and we did collect comments, critiques, suggestions, stakeholders' feedback, and interviews. Also, we did a site supervision, so we monitor factors such as growth rates, survival rates of stigdine, and any signs of disease or pest infestation. and also scientific monitoring. So we, in the projects for internship, scholarship are granted to ensure the participation of university students in the realization of core scientific works of PFO with the framework of the projects. So some pictures also for the evaluation and monitoring. And for the enquete or the evaluation with the stakeholders. So this is some results of this evaluation, just about age of these people, their profession, also their level of scholarship, and there is some kind of results also, the critique and observation about our project. So they ask about monitoring issues with the plants. So they give 22% for the score. For example, for transport not provided for some local residents, so they give 8 for the score. For example, also for inappropriate dimension and location of the holes. So there is some critique that we give us to ameliorate our work in the future for the restoration. And there is some recommendation. So, for example, we have a strength and extended duration of guardianship. So, for example, it was the important recommendation, 20% for the score. Continuous watering during the dry season also greater consistency in applying technical guidelines, and diversified tree and the crab species involved in the restoration. So there is some recommendation. We have also more, but there is the most important. So in our project, so we have a lot of results of the participatory planting. So in 50 hectares, employment opportunities, about 20 locals. Also 7 scholarships, 3 in the first of in the beginning of the project, and 4 for the evaluation and for the monitoring. Also discussion or restoration, meeting, visit, etc. Educational materials like videos, posters, brochures for the projects, logistical and technical support, and aid training and awareness workshop. So the global challenges and the customers in our project, it was about community engagement. It was the most important. It was very difficult to involve them in the beginning of the project. Also, it was about research limitation, especially with the budget of the project. Land use complex, because we have a lot of problem in our territory. Also about especially about cannabis culture. So we have some kind of conflicts about land use, and also for the last challenges, it was knowledge gaps. So the main lesson learned about the project RestoreMed project. So build on trust, we create a trust with the local community. We tried also to involve them in the project in different steps of the project, so include the participation to achieve our main aims, and also the sustainable practices. But because of this kind of projects, we can have sustainable results, sustainable practice of restoration. So ensuring replication in other region or context, so documentation and sharing, truly document the process, success, and challenges of the projects. Also capacity building, train local leaders and community members in project management and restoration techniques, empowering them to lead similar initiatives in their region. And the last one, it was collaboration and networking. So foster connection among community, NGO, and government bodies to create a supportive network that can facilitate knowledge exchange and resource sharing. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation and a successful case study of participatory approaches. Next up, we have Abdellah Ahjam, the coordinator of project RARBA-TIZNIT. He has a master in ecotourism and he has an extensive experience working with numerous NGOs. Today, he will talk about project RARBA-TIZNIT and in particular about citizen dynamics for the sustainable development of argan forests. Mr. Ahjam will present in French, and all the slides are both in French and English, so everyone should be able to understand. However, Joël Salamé from the International Association for Mediterranean Forest, our co-host, will give a brief summary in English at the end. So as always, if you have any questions, you can use the chat on YouTube. Je passe la parole à Abdellah Ahjam.
Merci. Je vais partager. C'est bon? Oui. Est-ce que c'est bon?
Il faudra mettre plein écran. Oui, c'est bon.
Ouais, merci. Bon. Bonjour à tout le monde. Mon exposé sur la dynamique citoyenne pour un développement durable de la Ghanerie. La Ghanerie, c'est une réserve de biosphère au sud du Maroc. Mon exposé va présenter d'abord le RARBA, c'est quoi le réseau RARBA et quels sont les projets réalisés. Et également, on va parler des enseignements tirés et perspectives. Le RARBA s'est créé en mai 2002 avec environ 250 associations provenant des 7 provinces de la Ghanerie. Actuellement, le RARBA s'est organisé en une coordination nationale et 6 coordinations provinciales appartenant à 6 provinces de la Ghanerie. Tout d'abord, je vais présenter là où se trouve la Ghanerie sur la carte du Maroc. Nous voyons là au niveau de la carte du Maroc, sur la même latitude, si on regarde là sur la carte d'Afrique, ça passe la Ghanerie, c'est au niveau de l'Haut Atlas occidental, l'Anti-Atlas occidental, c'est là où se trouve la Ghanerie. Sur la même ligne, latitude, on trouve le désert en Algérie, en Libye, en Égypte. Donc là, la Ghanerie, c'est un don naturel, géographique, des reliefs du Haut Atlas et de l'Anti-Atlas. Cette position de la Ghanerie, comme on voit sur la carte du Maroc, voilà le détail, où il y a le zonage de la réserve biosphère, il y a des zones centrales, c'est un concept de l'UNESCO, MAB, Management de biosphère, qui présente les zones centrales, qui a fait le zonage, également les zones tampons, qui ont les zones centrales, et le reste, c'est les zones de transition, transitoire. Voilà les six provinces où se trouve le RARBA, les 6 coordinations au niveau de la Ghanerie. Donc, une société civile qui s'est organisée au niveau du territoire de la réserve biosphère à Ghanerie. Notre mission en tant que réseau, la mission du RARBA, c'est non seulement un réseau des associations de la réserve biosphère à Ghanerie, positionnant comme un pôle d'animation et de plaidoyer au niveau d'un développement durable de la réserve biosphère à Ghanerie. Notre vision, la vision 2030, c'est ancrer le concept de la réserve biosphère à Ghanerie comme modèle de développement de la Ghanerie, parce que le concept approche réserve biosphère, c'est une approche globale intégrée où il y a un organe de gouvernance et un organe de gestion. La Ghanerie en chiffres. Je vais présenter la superficie de la Ghanerie, c'est environ de 83 000 hectares, avec une population d'environ 3 millions d'habitants. Au début du XXe siècle, la superficie était de 1 500 000 hectares. Donc, dans un siècle, c'est une réduction de plus de 55%, sachant que cette Ghanerie représente 14% des forêts du Maroc. La première forêt, c'est le chêne vert. ce niveau-là de la galerie, il y a 7000 espèces végétales, dont 1300 espèces endémiques, 24 000 espèces animales. Il y a 1640 espèces végétales menacées d'extinction, 600 espèces animales menacées d'extinction. La forêt de l'Arganet, c'est déjà parce qu'au Maroc, il y a la loi des forêts de 1917 et pour l'Arganet, il y a de 1925. C'est exceptionnel parce que c'est une forêt où se trouve la population dedans. Voilà un exemple, un douar perché sur les rochers. Voilà des maisons ici. Il y a les cultures en terrasse au niveau de l'Arganet. Là, ce sont les arbres de l'Arganet. Là également, on voit toute la montagne. Il y a des terrassettes, il y a les terrasses, il y a des cultures et il y a les arganiers. Là, le douar, c'est au milieu de l'arganerie. Donc, c'est une exception. C'est une forêt exceptionnelle, une forêt résiliente exceptionnelle. L'écosystème arganien est très riche. Sa diversité culturelle, la diversité également biologique. Diversité floristique, déjà arganie. L'arganie, c'est une espèce endémique. Il y a le dragonnier, également les derniers du dragonnier. Il y a les euphorbes, Euphorbia Ichenus, Euphorbia bomeriana, qui sont également des espèces endémiques. Au niveau de la diversité faunistique, on a le Bischoff, qui est l'espèce emblématique du parc national Souss-Massa, avec d'autres espèces, des rapaces, des mammifères, des reptiles, qui sont menacés d'extinction. Au niveau de l'arganerie, tout le travail de l'extraction d'huile d'argan, c'est un travail féminin. La collecte, il y a des rituels culturels qui accompagnent la collecte des fruits d'arganier, puis le concassage, la préparation d'huile d'argan. Tout ça, c'est un travail des femmes. Donc, il est plutôt culturel que biologique. Aujourd'hui, on a plus de 800 coopératives des femmes arganières au niveau de l'arganerie, mais malheureusement, l'économie de marché, 90% du chiffre d'affaires et de la matière première est accaparée par une seule personne, une seule société privée. Aujourd'hui, donc, c'est un danger pour le devenir de l'arganerie dans le futur. Les projets de l'arganerie, du RARBA, nos projets au RARBA, on a des projets de démonstration, on a fait des expériences de plantation des citoyens des arganiers dans leur propriété privée parce qu'avant, l'arbre arganier, c'est une plante forestière. Aujourd'hui, c'est forestière et fruitier. Donc, lorsqu'on a expérimenté la plantation d'argan dans des terrains privés, ça a été accepté, ça a été testé. Et donc, c'est une innovation, une démonstration. Le projet d'éducation environnementale des jeunes et des acteurs. Donc, on a fait des séances de sensibilisation. On a même créé un centre d'éducation environnementale à la province de TIZNIT. On a des projets de plaidoyer en gestion durable des ressources naturelles au RBA. Donc, on a des mémorandums envoyés au gouvernement, aux parlementaires et aux partenaires sur la mise à jour du plan cadre RBA, sur la gouvernance également. On a des projets de renforcement des capacités des acteurs locaux, que ce soit les femmes, que ce soit les jeunes, et, à travers le centre d'éducation environnementale. Voilà, en bref, quelques projets. Voilà les projets qu'on a fait de régénération d'arganier. On a fait un projet avec 145 000 euros avec des partenaires tels que l'ADS, l'Agence de développement social, le FEM, la région Souss-Massa. On a un autre projet avec de renforcement des capacités des acteurs locaux avec un budget de 150 000 euros, avec des partenaires tels que la GZ, GTZ à l'époque, GZ actuellement, et le FEM. On a également de renforcement des capacités des équipes d'animation communale pour l'élaboration d'une initiative de développement local. Ça a été fait avec le ministère de l'Intérieur et la province de TIZNIT avec un budget de 22 500. C'est plutôt là l'approche participative, la planification ascendante, c'est-à-dire au niveau communal. Ça a été fait au début de 2005, c'est-à-dire au début de l'NDH. Il y a également des projets d'éducation environnementale et la citoyenneté pour les jeunes lycéens. Il y a également des projets d'éducation environnementale au niveau des collèges et des lycées, au niveau des élèves scolarisés, pour s'imprégner sur la biodiversité et l'écologie de l'Arganier. Également, il y a une révision de notre plan stratégique à un certain moment, avec un appui de l'Oxfam Italie. On a également le projet de centre d'éducation environnementale, c'est l'ECO-TIZNIT, qui a pour objectif sensibiliser les jeunes scolarisés, qualification, accompagnement des clubs d'environnement scolaire, renforcement des capacités des acteurs locaux tels que les élus, les organisations civiles, avec 29 530 €, avec la contribution du ministère de l'Environnement, la province de TIZNIT, la commune de TIZNIT. Il y a également un projet de dynamique citoyenne pour renforcer les droits socio-économiques, culturels, environnementaux au niveau de l'RBA. Ça a été fait avec le ministère, la délégation interministérielle des droits de l'homme, avec 17 avec 20 000 € de contribution. Il a pour objectif d'appuyer la planification territoriale et la mise en place des droits socio-économiques des femmes et des jeunes et de tous les acteurs au niveau communal. Il y a également la promotion des droits des femmes de l'Arganerie. C'est un projet pour renforcer les capacités des femmes actrices locales, renforcer le plaidoyer des femmes pour une prise en compte de leurs attentes dans la planification territoriale et réalisation d'un guide des expériences des femmes réussies dans leur activité associative représentative. C'est avec un budget de 25 000 €. À travers ce projet, on a créé une coordination des femmes arganières pour se prendre en main et faire leur plaidoyer. Parce que nous, on a aidé la cause de la femme. Aujourd'hui, on a une coordination des femmes qui parlent d'elles-mêmes. Enfin, on a le projet Initiative territoriale pour un développement durable. C'est pour renforcer les capacités des acteurs locaux. Il y a un guide méthodologique sur l'approche droit, la planification territoriale, et une pétition. On a signé une pétition pour plaidoyer un développement durable de l'RBA qu'on a présenté à la région Sud-Ouest. Il faut savoir que jusqu'à aujourd'hui, réserve biosphère n'est pas présent dans la loi des aires protégées. Donc, les réserves biosphères, ils sont nés ici sans avoir un statut juridique. Ils n'ont pas de statut. La loi 2207 des aires protégées ne parle pas des réserves de biosphère. Donc, on a fait notre plaidoyer également auprès des parlementaires pour présenter notre mémorandum et reconnaître les réserves biosphériques des aires protégées. Voilà donc en bref les superficies qu'on a plantées artificiellement, c'est environ 876 hectares qu'on a planté de 2005-2010. Donc c'est une première initiative qui a été reprise après par d'autres partenaires. Le document de plaidoyer qu'on a produit jusqu'à aujourd'hui, on a un mémorandum pour une bonne gestion de gouvernance de l'Arganie. On a l'élaboration d'un guide méthodologique pour intégrer l'approche droit dans la planification territoriale, un mémorandum concernant les droits socio-économiques des femmes arganières, création d'une coordination des femmes arganières, élaboration d'un guide de bonnes pratiques des femmes leaders de l'Arganie. On a également enseignements tirés de perspective. Le changement que nous visons sur la question de la gestion durable de l'arganerie à travers un projet innovateur, régénération de l'arganerie, la planification ascendante et participative, l'épanouissement des femmes, la justice sociale et spatiale également, solidarité entre l'amont et l'aval, se confrontent à la lourdeur administrative et réglementaire. C'est un processus de plaidoyer pour le long terme. La participation, l'approche participative n'est pas réglementée chez nos structures gouvernementales, malgré le contexte favorisé par la Constitution 2011. Tout le monde parle de l'approche participative, mais qui participe? Comment faire participer la société civile? Donc, on a un travail à faire pour réglementer cette participation. Malgré nos avancements lents, le processus de plaidoyer pour une approche réserve de biosphère, une approche globale intégrée, nécessite des alliances nationales, internationales. Et c'est pourquoi nous adhérons aujourd'hui à l'UICN pour renforcer les capacités et renforcer la concertation pluriacteur avec nos partenaires institutionnels, parce que société civile, on ne peut pas se mettre à la place d'État. On est là pour échanger, pour planifier ensemble dans notre territoire. Il y a également la nécessité de contribuer notre plaidoyer pour une gouvernance de l'RBA, voire une structure de gouvernance territoriale pour la gestion durable de chacune des réserves biosphères. Aujourd'hui, on a 4 réserves biosphères au Maroc. Il faut avoir une structure nationale, une agence nationale des réserves biosphères du genre de l'ANZOA qui est aujourd'hui sur 2 réserves biosphères. Donc, on a besoin aujourd'hui d'une agence nationale. Soutenir le plaidoyer des femmes marganières pour leurs droits socio-économiques, leur implication dans la gestion de l'affaire locale, des instances consultatives. Renforcer les capacités des jeunes, des femmes, acteurs locaux pour faire face au stress hydrique qui menace les écosystèmes et s'adapter au changement climatique. Cette année, c'est critique. D'ailleurs, toute cette dernière décennie, on a un stress hydrique très, très puissant et très menaçant pour la biodiversité et même la vie humaine. Activer le Centre provincial d'éducation environnementale pour faire face au changement climatique, surtout aujourd'hui avec les changements climatiques, on a des catastrophes naturelles, que ce soit s'il y a des canicules, il y a des incendies, s'il y a des pluies torrentielles avec des inondations. Donc, il faut renforcer les capacités de nos acteurs locaux, que ce soit institutionnels, étatiques et collectivités territoriales. Donc, le besoin futur. Aujourd'hui, on a encore besoin de renforcer nos capacités de nos membres à travers l'échange d'expertise, les bonnes pratiques, partage d'expériences pour une gestion durable et inclusive de l'arganerie. Appuyer la coopération sud-sud avec des échanges bilatéraux ou multilatéraux, surtout sur la gestion des réserves de biosphère, des aires protégées à travers l'approche droit, l'approche genre et climat, parce qu'aujourd'hui, les femmes sont trop touchées par les changements climatiques. Construire des partenariats nord-sud en matière de gestion durable des ressources naturelles, des réserves de biosphère, et faire face au changement climatique à travers des solutions fondées sur la nature. Transfert technologique, valorisation des patrimoines culturels des peuples autochtones. Renforcer l'épanouissement des femmes leaders dans l'écosystème arganier pour une égalité de sexe. Et merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mr. Abdullah Ahjam. I will be doing a very brief recap of what he has been presenting. So he was presenting the Argan Grove Biosphere Reserve, which is located in the south of Morocco. For this reserve, there's a network of association, the RARBA network that he was presenting, that was created in 2022 with more than 250 associations located in the Argan Grove Biosphere Reserve. Their aim is to center the animation and advocate for the sustainable development of this biosphere reserve. This biosphere reserve is classified as a biosphere reserve by the UNESCO. It has an 83 1,000 hectares of area, but in the last century, this area has been reduced by more than half. So initially it was more than 83,000 hectares. It has a rich biodiversity, a fauna and flora biodiversity. And there's people who are living, since it's a UNESCO biosphere reserve, there's people living inside this argan grove, and they are doing agricultural activities inside this area. The argan grove is a work done by the women, the local women. They do the collection and the treatment of the argan. But unfortunately, this argan market is monopolized by one private company in the area. As a network of association of Argan Grove Biosphere Reserve, they have been implementing 4 types of projects. The first type is planting argan trees by the local people in their private properties, and they were able to plant so far 8,076 hectares. They have been implementing several environmental educational projects to raise awareness with the local stakeholders and the youth in the area. They have also been doing some advocacy project to do a sustainable management of the natural reserve of the Argan Grove Biosphere Reserve. And finally, they have been doing some capacity building projects to empower women and youth in the area. They have been facing several challenges, and to face those challenges, they have been developing some advocacy documents, such as several memorandum for good management and governance. They have developed a methodology, guides, and good practices for women leaders of the Argan Grove. What are their needs for the future? So they need to strengthen the capacities of the members of this network to exchange expertise, to exchange good practices, and to share their experiences for sustainable and inclusive management of the Argan forests. And they would need some cooperation between the south and the north areas in the biosphere in order to address climate change and water stress that they are facing through nature-based solution. And they would like to empower more women to reach gender equality in the area. So this is briefly what Mr. Abdallah Ahjam was presenting. Livia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Joelle, and thank you very much to Mr. Ahjam for this very interesting perspective on the sustainable management of the Biosphere Reserve. Our final speaker today is Marion Douchin. She's project manager at the Tour du Volat, a research institute for the conservation of Mediterranean wetlands. Marion has a long-term experience in international cooperation, focusing on biodiversity conservation and climate change. In her presentation, she will introduce us to the Mediterranean Biodiversity Consortium and the very interesting projects they are developing. Marion, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Olivia. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to participate in this webinar to speak about the multi-ecosystem and inclusive approach for forest conservation in the Mediterranean that is promoted by the Mediterranean Biodiversity Consortium. I'm based in Tour du Volat, which is a founding members of this coalition of organizations leading the RESCOM project that I'm going to present you. So the Mediterranean Biodiversity Consortium is a quite recent initiative. It was launched 3 years ago. And it brings together different regional environmental organizations dedicated to biodiversity conservation in the Mediterranean, with the support of the French Conservatoire du Littoral, which is a public agency that protects and manages coastal sites and landscapes in France, in particular by purchasing land. So this new coalition, the objective is to protect more effectively the Mediterranean biodiversity through a more integrated and collaborative approach, by pooling, combining, and capitalizing on the large experience, knowledge, know-how, and also networks of each organization which is part of it, and with its specific field of expertise in a dedicated ecosystem. For example, the members that are part of this consortium, we have the International Association for Mediterranean Forest, IEFM, with its expertise on forest. Also part of it are the Tour du Vala and the Mediterranean Wetlands Initiatives of Ramsar, MedWet, for their expertise on wetlands. You can find also the Initiative for the Small Mediterranean Islands, PIM Initiative, for their expertise on island environment. And I can quote also the MEDPAN, which is the Mediterranean Networks of Marine Protected Areas Managers, for their competency and skills on marine ecosystems. So the idea is really to bring together all these organizations to have this integrated and holistic approach in conservation and restoration, because ecosystems do not function in isolation. So you have to take into consideration the interactions between them, such as nutrient, water, or species flows that influence their health and resilience, but also their capacity to provide the ecosystem services. The objective is really to better understand their interactions and ecological balances between the ecosystems in order to define appropriate solutions for their protection, restoration, and sustainable management. And also, a key priority for the consortium is to have a collaborative approach. So to work closely with the managers and local stakeholders on the ground, involving local populations to find solutions that permit to combine or reconcile protection of nature and improvement of people's living conditions and livelihoods to ensure the sustainability of the conservation effort in the long term. So RESCOM project for strengthening the resilience of ecosystems in the Mediterranean is the first initiative, the first project of the consortium, with global objective is really to strengthen the resilience of ecosystems and populations in the Mediterranean coastal areas through the development and promotion of nature-based solution. A nature-based solution we're following the IUCN global standard for nature-based solutions, meaning that we are focusing on actions for the protection, restoration, and sustainable management of ecosystems, which can benefit both biodiversity conservation and improving human well-being by meeting some socio-economic challenges related to mitigation and adaptation to climate change, for example, improving human health, providing food security and water security, or also helping to reduce disaster risk in the areas. So the project has a duration of 4 years. It started only last year, so we've been implementing it for 1.5 years from now. It will end in 2026, and it's co-financed by the French Facility for the Global Environment, which is the French funds dedicated to biodiversity conservation. And also we got a funding from the MAVA Foundation for a total amount of 2.5 million euros. The project includes both regional activities, such as capacity building, exchange of experience and best practices on common topics or issues related to the management of natural sites, and the concrete application of nature-based solutions on the ground. It is also foreseen to have a call for small projects dedicated to CSOs, to civil society organizations through the Mediterranean basin, to develop and implement more small projects dedicated on NBS, also on nature-based solutions. And the project also includes some concrete and demonstrative actions on the ground in 6 different pilot sites that you can see on the map in the presentation on the right, located in 6 different countries. So Morocco, Tunisia, Italy, Montenegro, Albania, and Turkey. All the sites are coastal territories integrating different ecosystems to be in line with the multi-ecosystem approach fostered by the Mediterranean Biodiversity Consortium. And each site have status of protection, is a protected areas with different level of protection depending on the legal and national regulations. So all the projects is implemented by the consortium. Different activities are implemented by different members depending on their expertise. And the overall coordination of the projects is ensured by the Tour du Vala with the help of a facilitation team, which I am part of as the coordinator of these projects. On the pilot sites, the consortium members work in pairs. That 2 members of the consortium are involved in the sites and are working in close coordination with the national and local stakeholders, including the managers of the sites, to better understand the conservation and societal issues on the ground and to define appropriate solutions based on the ecosystems. So maybe to be more concrete, after giving you an overview of the overall project, I can speak a bit more about the actions that we are implementing in Tunisia. So one of the pilot sites of the project, which is the Ahjam National Park, that was created in 2010, and which is located, I don't have a map on the presentation, but in the northwest part of the country, close to the border with Algeria. So it has a perimeter of 6,700 hectares, and the site is characterized by a predominantly forested ecosystem with endemic species of Afares oak, for example, also a lot of riparian areas and peat bogs that are also in the area. Part of it is classified as a Ramsar site. The park also includes 2 natural reserves in its buffer zone, not in the park itself, but in the buffer zone, which is the Dar Fatma Natural Reserve and the Ain Zana Natural Reserve. It is managed by the General Forestry Department, which is under the Ministry of Agriculture of Tunisia and Forest, and it is governed by the Forestry Code and the National Park regulations. For example, activities that are forbidden in the park include hunting, capture of wildlife, tree cutting, agricultural and industrial activities, and cork exploitation. The park is inhabited because we have almost 4,000 households that live in the park with precarious conditions. Livelihoods are mainly based on subsistence farming and extensive livestock and exploitation of non-timber forest resources. Some ecosystems are quite degraded in the areas. The main pressures that are a threat to the ecosystems are the illegal or unregulated human activities, including illegal logging, overexploitation of forest resources, tourism with wild camping, hiking on unmarked paths, for example, a lot of waste. There are also overgrazing, particularly in the Dar Fatma area in the peat bog. All other threats are linked to forest fires and climate change impacts, poaching and illegal harvesting of animal and plant species, and also land clearance and illegal constructions around the peat bogs. So in the framework of the RESCOM projects, the IEFM, so the International Association for Mediterranean Forest, is coordinating and managing activities on this site in close coordination with the Forestry Department, of course, manager of the site, and with the technical support of the Tour du Vala, since the site also includes wetlands and peat bog. The planned activities to be carried on the site is phases in 3 steps over the duration of the project. So currently we are in the first phase, which is the definition of the management and development of the national park, which was inexistent until to date, which is based on an update of the ecological and socio-economic assessment of the park, and which will include in the perimeter not only the National Park of Oued-Ezen, but also the 2 natural reserves I've mentioned, which may result possibly in a possible extension of the national park's boundaries in the end, to have a more coherent area in terms of ecological interaction that I was mentioning at the beginning of the presentation. The second steps will be starting at the end of the year, early next year, the prioritization process of the actions of the nature-based solutions, priority actions to be implemented on the ground with all the local stakeholders, including local populations and local communities. And the third step will be the implementation of actions starting in February next year. So to give you an update on progress and perspectives for the activities we are implementing. So a kickoff workshop was organized in last June to present the project to the stakeholders and define and speak about the methodology for the management plan to be elaborated. So following a socio-economic approach that takes into consideration the local needs through consultation and interviews with the people. The next workshop is planned for mid-October, so in 2 weeks, to gather with all the stakeholders and to discuss the management scenarios that have been elaborated based on local needs. Because the objective of the study of this development plan is really to have an update of the ecological and socio-economic assessment of the park, identify the main conservation issues, constraints and threats, and propose a zoning of the parks with the core areas, buffer zone, transition area, with adequate measures for each zone, with, for example, strict conservation of natural and cultural resources in some areas of the park, sustainable management by prioritizing the nature-based solution that will be defined with population, and also to prioritize the development of income-generating activities for local people. This management and development plan, is intended to be in the end an innovative model for other national parks in Tunisia, so to be replicated and scaled up in other parks, which combine the local community's needs and scientific knowledge for natural resources conservation. And it is also intended to be a baseline for the national authorities to update the laws and regulations on protected areas and forests in Tunisia, moving from a restrictive approach to a more co-management approach with local communities. So we are at an early stage for the moment in the selection and identification of priority actions that still needs to be prioritized and discussed with all the stakeholders. But we can give you some ideas of activities that have been pre-identified, with a key objective in it is really to involve populations and offer alternative livelihoods options. Otherwise, conservation efforts will be useless. So some of the actions I identified deal with the development of an ecotourism offer, combining the region's natural and cultural heritage and involving local communities through, for example, the development of discovery circuit path, hiking paths, the establishment of different facilities to welcome and accommodate visitors, the training of eco of local guides that can be a source of revenues also for people. Other activities deal with the promotion of alternative income generating activities based on beekeeping, for example, or non-wood forest products such as wild mushrooms, medicinal and aromatic plants, lentisk oil, etc. Other actions deals with the restoration action that will focus on key ecosystems that are in a degraded state, such as the Apharis oak species and the riparian areas in the zone. Other ideas will be to introduce a rotational grazing to allow for plot regeneration. And last but not least, education and awareness raising about the site ecosystems, services, and values. Thank you for your attention, and please don't hesitate if you have any question.
Thank you very much, Marion. Thank you for sharing a promising experience about improving social and environmental resilience. So for the Q&A session, I will ask the support of Rosario Galan from IUCN, who has been collecting the questions so far. Do we have questions for our speakers?
Yes, thank you, Livia. So we have a question for Kaouthar Aouane, asking whether they are planning on replicating a similar project in other areas in Morocco or the Mediterranean, or maybe a second phase of the project.
Please, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes,
Sorry?
whether you were planning on doing a second phase of the project or maybe replicating a similar project in other areas in Morocco or in other areas in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, of course, we want to duplicate this kind of projects in our territory in the national Talasemtane National Park, because it covers almost 60,000, and we have a lot of the space that they need to restore it. So with the experience of Restore Med Forest Morocco, we will try to duplicate the results of these projects in this territory.
Great, thank you, Kaouthar. We have another question for Abdellah Ahjam. Then maybe, Joel, if you could help me with the translation. So you have been talking about the relevant place for women and young people in the conservation of biodiversity in the Argan forest. So maybe you could share a bit of which are your plans to achieve that gender equality that you were talking about.
Quels sont vos plans pour les femmes et les jeunes, pour les inclure dans la conservation de la biodiversité dans l'arganerie?
Merci pour votre question. Chez nous, le grand enjeu, c'est d'avoir la femme, parce que c'est la femme qui est au centre de la garnerie. C'est elle qui profite de la garnerie dans soit l'élevage, soit pour l'extraction de l'huile d'argan, mais n'en tire pas, il n'a pas tous ces droits socio-économiques. Donc, il faut déjà que cette richesse soit retombée sur ces droits socio-économiques et puisse son épanouissement dans les instances de décision. On a plaidé pour que les femmes aient sa place, et maintenant on a constitué une coordination des femmes arganières pour présenter leur plaidoyer. Déjà, ils ont travaillé pour le premier plaidoyer et on est là pour l'appuyer, pour appuyer son accès à ses droits. Et là, on a besoin des instances, que ce soit des structures nationales, l'exécutif gouvernemental national ou international. On a besoin d'un appui dans le renforcement des capacités des femmes et des jeunes. Aujourd'hui, on a créé le centre d'éducation environnementale et on a parmi les objectifs, c'est d'appuyer les femmes et les jeunes à travers l'éducation environnementale, à travers la planification ascendante, à travers l'implication de la femme dans la planification territoriale. Il faut qu'elle soit entendue et l'application de l'approche genre et climat. La situation de la femme est fragile déjà par le faible accès à ses droits. Aujourd'hui, trop fragilisée par les changements climatiques. Avec là, les hommes, et c'est la femme qui reste dans la campagne, donc il fait face à beaucoup d'obstacles. Donc là, nous plaidons qu'il soit entendu, qu'il soit impliqué dans les instances de concertation, les instances de décision et également consultatives, les instances consultatives. Voilà. Je ne sais pas si j'ai répondu.
So he was saying that women are considered the center of the argan business, let's say, and they need to be highlighted for that. So they are doing some coordination meeting with the women to advocate for their rights. They would need the help of the national and international authorities to advocate for their rights. And what they are doing whenever they have projects, actual projects, they are involving women in the planification phase of those projects and in the consultation phases of the project in order to empower them.
Great, thank you very much. Merci, Ahjam. There is another question for Marion Douchin that is about you have been explaining the planned activities for one of the pilot areas. So the question is whether the planned activities are similar in the other pilot areas that you have not described, or if you could tell us a little bit about the other pilot areas in the project.
Excuse me, my connection is quite bad. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, so you were explaining one of the pilot areas in the RESCOM project and the planned activities that you have in that area. So which are your plans in the other pilot areas? Are they also protected areas, for example? And which are the planned activities that you have? If you plan to follow a similar methodology in the other ones?
Okay. Yeah, I hope you can hear me well because the connection is quite unstable here in Tour du Vala. Yeah, sure, we have the same methodology approach in the 6 pilot sites. So with the three steps that I mentioned, with having some or helping the definition of management plan if it doesn't exist, or conducting some additional and complementary ecological studies that can help to collect data on biodiversity to identify the main conservation issues and prioritize the actions to be implemented with local stakeholders in each pilot site before implementation. So in North Africa, in the other pilot sites in Morocco, which is the national parks, the Khnifis National Park, located really in the south of the country, the conservation issues are similar. I mean, the socio-economical aspects are quite similar, and the idea is also to improve the ecotourism offer there, to strengthen the attractivity of these national parks, involving local communities. You have a lot of fishermen over there, fishing community that can propose some boat tour, also some giving them awareness, raising about all the species, water birds that are in the area, to also sensitize the tourists. The idea is also to work with the women's cooperative there, salt producers, to include them into the different circuits, touristic circuit that could be developed. So in Morocco, we have a same approach, let's say, that in Tunisia. In the Balkan, in Albania and Montenegro, issues are more related to coastal erosion and improving the balance and circulation of waters between salt waters, the sea, and fresh waters, to have better, an ecological balance for the wetlands ecosystem there. So to improve natural habitats for the biodiversity, improve water quality in some wetlands in Albania that are dealing with a lot of pollution. So you have also some human health issue in that, because there is fishing activities, lots of agricultural activities that with agricultural and pesticides runoff. So also work with local populations on improving agricultural and fishing practices. So this will be one key priority in the Balkans. In Turkey, we have also the same issue of coastal erosion, so improving the dune restoration that are a natural barrier to sea level rise and coastal erosion, and also limit some pressures here about the development of agricultures and urban areas. So work with local municipality and stakeholders to limit these pressures. And for Sardinia, so not to be too long, we are in a marine protected areas. So the main issue here is the restoration of Posidonia, the seagrass beds that provide a key habitat for a lot of marine species, but also is providing a lot of ecosystem services in terms of carbon storage, limitation also of coastal erosion and disaster and extreme events. So the key focus here will be about the seagrass, the Posidonia meadow restoration.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive response, Marion. We have received a question which is in French, so I don't know if maybe Abdellah or Kaouthar would like to respond to it. I'm going to read it in English, which is: what is the impact of social dynamics on the sustainable development of forest resources? It was asked by Dries Had. So maybe Kaouthar, would you like to respond to that? I can repeat the question.
Yeah, please, Rosario.
So the question is about the social dynamics and which is the impact of social dynamics on the sustainable development of the forest resources.
Yeah, if you allow me, I want to respond to this question by this outside. So, for example, for the impact of our project regarding ecosystem restoration in Talassemtane National Park. So the project has highlighted the importance of involving local communities in our programs, which has greatly enhanced their engagement and support. And we have implemented initiatives to raise awareness among local population about the benefits of ecological restoration, and this had fostered a strong sense of ownership and collaboration with the local community. And we introduced also as administration a compensation system, c'est compensation de mise en fonds for farmers and residents and in selected areas designated for protection. And also this not only aligns with our restoration efforts, but also addresses the needs and the concerns of the local communities. So I see here the impact of involving the local community in this kind of project, and what we have as a benefit, socioeconomic benefit. If Mr. Ahjam wants to add something about this question.
La question, c'était quel est l'impact socio-dynamique sur le développement durable des projets, donc de l'arganerie par exemple.
L'impact de notre démarche en tant que société civile, je pense qu'il y a un échange bénéfique avec l'agence, le haut commissaire des eaux et forêts avant, mais aujourd'hui c'est l'agence nationale des eaux et forêts. Il y a un échange, il y a un partenariat, parce que j'ai dit, on a commencé par l'implantation de l'argané, parce qu'avant l'argané c'était un arbre forestier. On a commencé à le planter dans des propriétés privées. On a montré dans les régions de Souss-Massa, la région de Souss-Massa, Agadir, TIZNIT, Taroudan, Stouket-Baha. Donc, on a planté les arganes chez les terrains privés, les terrains de domaine collectif, donc des différents terrains. On a testé ça. Et puis, cette initiative aujourd'hui, il est beaucoup influencé par le stress hydrique. Surtout qu'il y a l'RBA n'a pas encore un organe de gouvernance de gestion.
Monsieur Ahjam, we have some problem with hearing you. Maybe Joël can summarize in the meantime what you have said so far.
Yes, there was cutting from my side as well, so I couldn't hear everything. So what he was saying, that they have like fruitful exchange with the National Agency of Forests in Morocco, and they have built like a strong partnership with them. And he was saying that because the argan tree was considered as a forestry tree, but they were able to convince people to plant it in their private lands in order to like expand the forest area and have like economical benefits. And that's it, what I have heard. Monsieur Abdellah, peut-être que vous voulez nous donner plus d'informations, surtout sur le stress hydrique que vous avez mentionné, parce que je n'ai pas bien pu vous entendre pour que je puisse traduire.
Le stress hydrique, dernière décennie, ces dernières années, la
Ça coupe toujours, j'arrive pas à vous entendre. Donc, maybe we would answer another question, Rosario. I think there's a connection problem.
Yeah, maybe we can move on. I think we got already some response from both Kaouthar. On vous écoute pas. Il y a un problème de connexion.
On n'arrive toujours pas à vous entendre. Peut-être qu'il y a un problème de connexion, donc on va revenir vers vous.
Yeah, maybe we can ask one last question for Marion, and then Mr. Ahjam is going to write some of the responses, and then maybe Joel, you can provide that summary. So there is another question for Marion Douchin, asking about the future plans of the consortium, whether you're planning on doing some similar projects, or which is the intention of this consortium, please.
Of course, the consortium, yeah, the RESCOM is really the consortium first project, first initiative, as I mentioned. And we see it as a mean really to promote, test and experiment this new approach of working together, all these organizations together in the field, and to demonstrate the benefits of both in terms of ecological and socio-economical term, the benefits of these joint solutions for populations and ecosystems. So our objective is really to replicate and scale up these solutions through the Mediterranean basin, working on other pilot sites in other countries in the Mediterranean, through the continuation of these projects, if we get additional funding, of course, this is one of our key objective, or building new initiatives and new projects. So we are working on it with the members of the consortium. And the idea is, really to upscale these solutions, also raising awareness and developing advocacy activities, targeting the key political decision makers at different levels, nationally, regionally also, and to target also financial donors to get more fundings to increase the impact of our actions on the ground in the current pilot sites, because with the budget available right now, we can finance only part of the priority activities identified. So we are searching for additional funding. And the idea is also, to expand to work with other sites in the Mediterranean with a long-term perspective, so for the consortium.
Great, thank you very much. I think Mr. Ahjam was going to write some responses, but I don't see anything just yet. And we have like 4 minutes left.
Je pense que c'est le problème est résolu ou non? Vous m'entendez?
Oui, parfaitement.
Oui.
Voilà. Je parlais, le stress hydrique, c'est dû au changement climatique parce qu'il y a une succession des années de sécheresse, une dizaine d'années où les faibles précipitations. À ce problème-là s'ajoute un problème de gouvernance. On a l'agence responsable de l'eau a tiré la sonnette d'alarme depuis 2000 en disant qu'on est sous le seuil rouge, sous la ligne rouge concernant la nappe phréatique. Donc là, l'autorité, la politique sectorielle de l'eau, la politique sectorielle de l'agriculture, on continue à creuser les puits, à épuiser la nappe phréatique durant 2 décennies, depuis 2000 jusqu'à 2022, où il y a station de dessalement d'eau de mer. Donc, 2 politiques sectorielles divergentes dans le même territoire. Donc, le problème ici, c'est qu'il y a un problème naturel, il y a un problème de gouvernance. Il faut qu'il y ait des politiques sectorielles qui se convergent au niveau de territoire. La politique de l'eau, ils disent qu'on est sur la ligne rouge, mais les projets d'agriculture, on continue à épuiser la phréatique. Jusqu'aujourd'hui, on est sur le point de la soif. Seulement, il y a le projet de dessalement d'eau de mer, et c'est là pour approvisionner en agriculture et approvisionner également en eau potable. Je ne sais pas si...
Yes. I'm afraid we won't have time for the translation because our time is running out. So we will for sure bring all the discussions to the panel for the Mediterranean Forest Week. And I would like to thank everyone for attending this webinar. Please save the date of the following one, which will be on the 10th of October, and we will be discussing ecosystem services and their potential to support forest biodiversity. We really hope you will be able to join us for this event too. Don't forget to visit the Mediterranean Forest Week webpage at www.mediterraneanforestweek.org to learn more about all the webinars that are taking place and be part of the Med Forest Week. Finally, I would like to say a huge thank you to all the speakers who shared their time and expertise and presented us many real-life successful experiences on how to create synergies with local inhabitants to support forest biodiversity. I think we started with a great webinar, and thank you to everyone.